Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. We're on josephsmithpapers.org, and we're looking at Lucy Mack Smith History 1845. If you're new to the church or you don't know, Lucy Mack Smith is the mother of Joseph Smith, and she put this together a year after he was killed. So it contains stories and accounts from her point of view and from what she knew. She recorded it all down. And there's two really interesting things that I found that I want to share with you. The first one is a vision that I didn't know about that Joseph Smith had. So I'm going to read her account of that vision. And then later on in the same chapter, there's an account of this instance of apostasy that took place. And this is something that I've been wanting to do. I now have a new spreadsheet called Quotes, Apostates, and I want to collect all the different accounts that I can find of times when people have formed these apostate groups and led people astray. The reason why is because ever since I started this channel, I've noticed some people, and don't feel ashamed if you're one, but I've noticed some people are easily persuaded, duped by the same type of characters, essentially predators that are looking to get something from you, either attention or they're trying to get you to join a splinter group, apostates that have their own agenda. And I feel like it would be beneficial to keep like a timeline for this, just like I'm doing for this spreadsheet. By the way, this spreadsheet is a collection of all the visions, visitations, dreams, near-death experiences, end-of-life accounts that we have from general authorities, either that happened to them or someone that they knew. And it's been a very eye-opening thing. It's in timeline order. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. And by the way, they're best viewed with a desktop or a laptop. If you come to this account, you're going to be looking at column K where it says account. Double click on the cell, and then you can see everything that's contained in that cell. Alternatively, you can copy the cell and paste it somewhere else, or just copy it onto your own document. So anyway, timeline order of this, and I want to do a timeline order of these apostate accounts. I don't have this one on this spreadsheet yet. I still need to do a little bit more research before I do, but I'm going to read what I found, and then it's going to end up here. Okay, so let's talk about Joseph Smith's vision first. I don't have a very good date for this. All I know is that, according to the account, it was after the Kirtland Temple was completed, quote unquote. So I don't know if that means like when the building was finished or after it was dedicated. That's unclear. There were some ordinances that were done, like the early elements of the endowment. And when I say that, I mean like initiatory type stuff, like initiatories that were done before the dedication. So it could be between the completion of the building and when it was dedicated. I'm not sure, but it was definitely in 1836. If you go to the bottom of my spreadsheet, I have this like tally of all these accounts by decade. So this is another I'm sorry. This is another one for the 1830s, which just puts the 30s even more in the lead with 26 that I have so far. And that makes for a total of 82 across all decades. So I'm at 82 accounts of visions and visitations. Okay, so I'm going to read directly from the primary source on josephsmithpapers.org. This is on page 233, chapter 45. The house of the Lord completed, and division in the church, which is crossed out, apostasy. The house of the Lord went steadily forward until it was completed, notwithstanding the threats of the mob. When this work was accomplished, there was much rejoicing in the church, and great blessings poured out upon the elders. But as I was not present at the endowment, I shall say but little about it. Shortly after the completion of the house, Joseph and Martin Harris took a short tour through the eastern country. When they arrived at Palmyra on their return, so I don't know. Okay. When they arrived at Palmyra on their return, so maybe this actually happened at Kirtland, Joseph had a vision which lasted until he besought the Lord to take it from him. For it manifested to him things which were painful to contemplate. It was taken from before his eyes for a short time, but so on returned again, and remained until the whole scene was portrayed before him. And that's it. So I don't have really any accounts on here so far of Joseph Smith having like a disturbing vision where he had to take a break. So I don't know the contents of that vision. The only one that really kind of stands out that it could be, I'm not sure, is this one. Okay, so excuse me, this was sometime after April 6th, so shortly after the dedication of the Kirtland Temple in March on the 27th. So there's this. This is from President Heber C. Kimball, first counselor in the first presidency, in a book called Life of Heber C. Kimball, pages 103 to 104. During this time, many great and marvelous visions were seen, one of which I will mention, which Joseph the prophet had concerning the 12. His anxiety was and had been very great for their welfare when the following vision was manifested to him, as near as I can recollect. He saw the 12 going forth, and they appeared to be in a far distant land. After some time, they unexpectedly met together, apparently in great tribulation, their clothes all ragged, and their knees and feet sore. They formed into a circle, and all stood with their eyes fixed upon the ground. The Savior appeared, and stood in their midst, and wept over them, and wanted to show himself to them, but they did not discover him. He, Joseph, saw until they had accomplished their work, and arrived at the gate of the celestial city. There, Father Adam stood, and opened the gate to them, and as they entered, he embraced them one by one and kissed them. He then led them to the throne of God, and then the Savior embraced each one of them and kissed them and crowned each one of them in the presence of God. He saw that they all had beautiful heads of hair, and all looked alike. The impression this vision left on brother Joseph's mind was so acute a nature that he never could refrain from weeping while rehearsing it. So I don't know if that matches up with what we just read. This may have been something different. I don't really know. But here we have it. So if you know anything more about this vision, if you have like references that I can look into, please send it my way. Okay, now we'll move on to this account of apostasy. Now, thankfully, and I should do this every time. You should do it every time if you're on this website. Make sure to read the source note and historical introduction, because sometimes there's critical information in here. So let me read this part. It was not until 1901 that the church released an authorized edition in serial form in the Improvement era. So they did this because there were some issues, I guess, with what she recorded. And so the church went through and edited it. So they put it in the Improvement era, which was a church magazine for youth. All right. And then continuing, the serial began in the November 1901 issue under the title History of the Prophet Joseph Smith, which I've seen that a bunch of times whenever I've been looking at the Improvement era. So now I know where that comes from. I didn't know until today. And concluded in the January 1903 issue. When published in book form in 1902, It bore the title History of the Prophet Joseph Smith by his mother, Lucy Smith, as revised by George A. Smith and Elias Smith. Subsequently, other popular editions have appeared. So, what we'll do, and I compared it, I didn't see anything between the book account and this primary source. I didn't see any discrepancies, but I'm just going to read it from the book. This is on archive.org. Okay, now, please pay attention. Pay attention to what may have been the circumstances that fostered apostasy, or, like the set of circumstances that would have been favorable to a predator, like an opportunist, and when they decided to make their move. Okay. In the fall of 1836, a bank was established in Kirtland. Soon after the sermon above mentioned, Joseph discovered that a large amount of money had been taken away by fraud from his bank. He immediately demanded a search warrant of Esquire F.G. Williams, which was flatly refused. "I insist upon a warrant," said Joseph, "for if you'll give me one, I can get the money, and if you do not, I will break you of your office." End quote. And then Frederick G. Williams, "Well, break it is then," said Williams, "and we will strike hands upon it." "Very well," said Joseph. "From henceforth I drop you from my quorum in the name of the Lord." Joseph then went to Cleveland in order to transact some business pertaining to the bank. And as he was absent the ensuing Sunday, my husband, so this is Joseph Smith Sr., the prophet's father, my husband preached to the people. In speaking of the bank affair, he reflected somewhat sharply upon Warren Parrish. Although the reflection was just, Parrish was highly incensed and made an attempt to drag him out of the stand. My husband appealed to Oliver Cowdery, who was Justice of the Peace, to have brought to order, but Oliver never moved from his seat. William, so this is William Smith, I believe it would be Joseph Smith's brother, William Smith, seeing the abuse which his father was receiving, sprang forward and caught Parrish and carried him in his arms nearly out of the house. At this, John Boynton stepped forward and, drawing a sword from his cane, presented it to William's breast and said, "If you advance one step further, I will run you through." Before William had time to turn himself, several gathered around him, threatening to handle him severely if he should lay the weight of his finger upon Parrish again. At this juncture of affairs, I left the house, not only terrified at the scene, but likewise sick at heart to see that the apostasy of which Joseph had prophesied was so near at hand. Okay, so there were some money issues. There was fraud at the new Kirtland Bank. People were unhappy. So there was discontent. Okay, let's just say, and whether it's here or any other period of time, if there's some controversy, some issue, that's when you have these opportunists that step in. That's what I believe. Okay, so after that, at this time, a certain young woman who was living at David Whitmer's uttered a prophecy, which she said was given her by looking through a black stone that she had found. This prophecy gave some altogether a new idea of things. She said the reason why 1/3 of the church would turn away from Joseph was because he was in transgression himself, that he would fall from his office on account of the same, that David Whitmer or Martin Harris would fill Joseph's place, and that the one who did not succeed him would be the counselor to the one that did. Now, if they had email back then, and if all of us were living at this time, I would be getting emails right now saying, Jared, there's this girl, she also has a seer stone and she's receiving prophecies and blah, blah, blah. What do you think about this? And I would probably make a video and say, you guys, the Lord does things in a certain way. There's an order to this church. This is not how the Lord would work. And, I can't blame you if you're like new to the church, you're not familiar with the way that things are done, or if you haven't read Doctrine and Covenants, which spells out how the church is run and the way that the Lord works. He works through his prophet. And we're living in the last dispensation. And he has said that this dispensation will not fall into apostasy. Okay. That's one angle that predators usually want to take. It's like, oh, there's something wrong with the church. They may take it from like a political angle. They may look to social issues or whatever, and then claim that something needs to be fixed. And, oh, guess what? I'm now the prophet, or whatever. So it's been happening ever since the beginning. So some random young woman mimicking Joseph Smith, claiming that she has a black stone, and now she's receiving revelations. And, it's being revealed to her who the next prophet is going to be. I mean, it's been with us ever since the very beginning, these like apostate trends. Okay, continuing. The girl soon became an object of great attention among those who were disaffected. Interesting. Those that are disaffected are attracted to things like this. Dr. Williams became her scribe and wrote her revelations for her. Jared Carter, who lived in the same house with David Whitmer, soon imbibed the same spirit. And I was informed that he said in one of their meetings that he had power. Okay, look at this. He said in one of their meetings that he had power to raise Joseph Smith to the highest heavens or sink him down to the lowest hell. Oh, of course. Shortly after this, Jared came to our house, and I questioned him relative to what he had said concerning Joseph. Not having mentioned the matter to my husband, he did not understand what I meant at first, but after a little explanation, he warned Jared to repent of the injudicious course that he was taking and speedily confess his sins to the church, or the judgments of God would overtake him. Jared received this admonition and, acknowledging his fault, agreed to confess to the brethren the first opportunity. The next morning, he was seized with a violent pain in his eyes and continued in great distress for 2 days. On the evening of the second day, he arose from his bed and, kneeling down, besought the Lord to heal him, covenanting to make a full confession to the church at meeting the next day. Gosh, that sounds like something just right out of the Book of Mormon. Accordingly, the next Sabbath, he arose and stated to the brethren that he had done wrong, and asking their forgiveness, begged to receive again into their confidence. He did not, however, state what he had done that was wrong. Nevertheless, his confession was received, and he was forgiven. But the rest of his party continued obstinate. They still held their secret meetings. So here's like another thing here, the secret get-togethers, the secret meetings outside the mainstream of the church. These little groups that have the hidden knowledge, the new prophecies. Some people are attracted to those things because they're looking for dopamine hits. In other words, they want excitement. And so you're presenting something exciting as if what was going on at that time wasn't exciting enough. I mean, this was still the first president of the church and everything was fresh and new. No, for some people, that's still not enough. What's the next new thing? And so in this case, it was this girl with her black stone. Okay, so they still held their secret meetings at David Whitmer's. And when the young woman who was their instructress was through giving what revelations she had intended for the evening, she would jump out of her chair and dance over the floor, boasting of her power until she was perfectly exhausted. Her proselytes would also, in the most vehement manner, proclaim their purity and holiness and the mighty power which they were going to have. Interesting that, there's this obsession with power power and, oh my gosh, we're so good, we're so pure. I see some of that behavior sometimes too. People that declare how good they are, pointing out other people's faults. Okay. They made a standing appointment for meetings to be held every Thursday by the pure church in the house of the Lord. They also circulated a paper in order to ascertain how many would follow them, and it was found that a large number of the church were disaffected. In this spirit, some went to Missouri and contaminated the minds of many of the brethren against Joseph in order to destroy his influence. This made it more necessary than ever to keep a strict guard at the houses of those who were the chief objects of their vengeance. So, yeah. So you take, you have discontents, right? And then you use like the same beliefs. Like, oh, well, we're a church that believes in prophets and apostles and revelation. Things are continuing now in our time. So you take something that people are already familiar with and then you skew it, right? And you fixate on power and influence and how good you are. And then you take a secret poll. Well, you have secret meetings and then you take a secret poll to see who else you can recruit. And then you spread and, try and spread the poison to other people. Yep. So hopefully we can learn from this and not become prey to people like this and recognize these patterns. So I'm going to copy this over onto my spreadsheet. We'll put it right here in 1836. I got to figure out how I'm going to do these columns. I'm running out of time today. That's why I didn't do this already, but I'll do that shortly, probably over the next couple days. And then we'll start to find more of these accounts. But that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.